Welcome to Goobertown Hobbies. My name is Brent. This is gonna be a quick book review sort of thing. Today's topic is the Horus Heresy series from Black Library. I don't have a lot of good pictures of 30k characters, so I encourage you to tab out and do something else while you listen to me. Or you can watch me and root for me to catch some fish. The Horus Heresy is a series of novels and novellas and audio dramas in the Warhammer 40k universe set 10,000 years before the main game. Humanity has been united by the godlike emperor of mankind. The armies of man are crusading across the galaxy, conquering everything from lost pockets of Terrans to alien scum. The emperor's armies are led by 18 legions of space marines, genetically enhanced super soldiers in powder armor. At the head of each legion is a Primarch. The Primarchs are demigods in powder armor. They were created in test tubes by the emperor to be his generals, and they are considered to be his sons. The 18 Primarchs are brothers. They all serve the Emperor, but they're also competing for power and for glory. They were all raised on different planets, and they all have unique powers and strengths. The legions of Space Marines are each genetically related to the Primarch that leads them, and they all have a unique flavor and gimmick. So the whole book series is a prequel, kind of an origin story for Warhammer 40k. The key events of the Horus Heresy have been part of Warhammer lore for decades. Horus is one of the Primarchs. He's corrupted by demonic forces of chaos, and he rebels against the Emperor. Horus's Heresy. Half of the legions join him, plunging the galaxy into civil war. Brother fights brother, and chaos gods intervene to try to topple the godlike Emperor of mankind. Eventually, Horus and his legions assault Holy Terra. Horus is defeated, but he's able to kill his brother Sanguinius and badly wound the Emperor. For the Imperium, the events of the Horus Heresy begin 10,000 years of constant, hopeless war against chaos, aliens, and each other. This sets up the universe of Warhammer 40,000. This series of books explores the events of the Horus Heresy primarily from the point of view of the various Space Marine legions. There are some unmodified human characters, but for the most part they're all passengers or crew on Space Marine battleships. There are also some Custodes and Mechanicus and Assassins. In these books, we see the high point of the empire of mankind. We see the corruption of Horus, as well as the temptation and fall of other Primarchs and Legionaries. We see betrayals and revelations. Themes of fraternity, honor, temptation, and fate are explored. Of course, these books only exist because of the tabletop game Warhammer 40k and the popularity of Space Marines. I assume that the 18 legions of Space Marines were originally conceived as a way to give players options for themes and colors as they were painting models and building their tabletop armies. These novels serve as a vehicle to feature all of the various legions. If you're really interested in Dark Angels or Emperor's Children or the Alpha Legion, well, you'll get to see what your legion was doing during the events of the Horus Heresy. Let's move into the review stage here. I've been reading these books for a few years now. For me, I was interested in learning more about the personalities of the various Space Marine legions. I was hoping that this would help me decide colors for future painting projects. One of my friends told me that they were worth reading, so I dove in. So far, there are 50-something books in this series. I've read 21 of them. And I am done. I think it might be worth it to read some of the books in this series, but the whole series start to end? No. No. For me, this series is not worth my time. Now let me tell you why. First off is a weakness that applies to any books in a big IP. Star Trek, Star Wars, Warcraft, Warhammer. The authors who write in these settings have their hands tied. I think a lot of these authors are very skilled, but severe limitations are placed on the type of story that they can tell. The rules of the universe are set in stone, and the big characters all have character shields. As a kid, I read all the Star Wars books. After Return of the Jedi, Han, Luke, and Leia went on a lot of adventures and stopped a whole bunch of new secret superweapons. The authors could invent new superweapons and new Imperial admirals, and they could give Wedge Antilles a girlfriend, but in a lot of ways they were really limited. And yes, I know, after about 100 expanded universe books, R.A. Salvatore did get permission to juice sales by killing Chewbacca, but that kinda makes the point, doesn't it? I've read plenty of books set in familiar IPs, and they can be pretty enjoyable. But at the back of my mind, I know that the safeties are all on. I know who's gonna survive, and I know who beamed down wearing a red shirt. The Horus Heresy is set in an established universe, and it's a prequel. We basically know what happens to the big characters. If you're familiar with the Warhammer universe, you also know the rules of chaos and magic. Faster than light travel is possible by flying through the warp, and the warp is the domain of demons and chaos energies. A lot of the Horus Heresy books involve characters learning about the warp and being surprised when they come face to face with demons. As a reader, we can get some interesting little details, but the revelation that demons are real has absolutely no punch to it. We all know that there are demons. We've all seen the models in the store. Obviously there are demons in the warp, so by the time the 10th Space Marine character learns that demons are real, well, it's just not very interesting to read about. A lot of my criticisms about this series boil down to the fact that it is very repetitive. Over the course of 21 books, it wasn't one character being surprised that demons are real, it was at least 21 characters. Partially, I think this repetition is because the series is trying to appeal to fans of all the different legions and factions in the Warhammer game. 18 legions make sense for lots of cool paint schemes, but from a storytelling point of view, 18 legions is way too many. 18 legions plus the Lords on Terra plus the Adeptus Mechanicus of Mars plus whoever else is a lot of factions. Game of Thrones tells a wonderfully complex story about civil war in the Seven Kingdoms. Throw in the Riverlands, the Night's Watch, the Wildlings, the Dothraki, and Meereen, and you're still nowhere near the number of factions in the Horus Heresy. For story purposes, there is no need for 18 legions. Hogwarts could have had 18 dormitories, but 4 worked out really nicely for the story. The Horus Heresy series strives to give each legion some time to shine because there are Warhammer players out there who care about each of those factions. The result is that we get a book where the Emperor's children discover that demons are real, and then the Dark Angels, and then the Space Wolves, and then the Ultramarines, and then the Blood Angels. As far as I can tell, there are just a handful of storylines in these books that get repeated over and over and over again. Characters learn and grudgingly accept that Horus has betrayed the Emperor. Characters learn and grudgingly accept that a Space Marine would dare to attack a fellow Space Marine. Characters learn and grudgingly accept that demons are real. All of these characters go through the exact same stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And most of them spend way too much time in the denial phase. Space Marines are supposed to be really smart, but wow, are some of these guys dumb. Oh, speaking of dumb, another common trope is a Primarch or Space Marine character having an unsubtle vision of the future. In a dream, a shadowy figure that looks exactly like Horus kills a shadowy figure that looks exactly like Sanguinius. What could it possibly mean? These common story arcs and revelations of betrayal are slightly different in each book because of the nature of each legion. In the Space Wolves version, the words pack, wolf, and scent get used a lot. In the Blood Angels version, the words blood, scent, and vitae crop up a lot. In the Dark Angels version, the words knight, lord, and monster. Ultimately, all 18 legions are the same thing painted in different colors. They were created to know no fear. They're all males, they don't seem to have romantic interests, and most of them don't seem to have any hobbies other than training for combat. These superhumans have less emotional range than regular humans, and they are less interesting than regular humans. The authors try their best to make them into distinct characters, but the only ones that really stick out in my mind stick out because of how cartoonish and over the top they are. Lucius the swordsman likes the sword. He has a magic sword. He's always training with his sword. He has perfect balance, like a born duelist. Say what you will about Lucius and Fabius, they're some of the only Space Marine characters that are actually memorable. Most of the other legionaries just blend together for me. And again, I'm not blaming the authors. Their hands are tied. This is just what they were given to work with. Aside from repetitive character moments, it should be no surprise that all of the books involve bolters and las cannons being shot at demons, aliens, and other Space Marines. There's a decent variety of action set pieces throughout the series. Those Marines in their standard pattern armor fire their standard pattern bolters in a bunch of different environments at a bunch of different enemies. There's not much to review here. We all know that 20% of the words in these books are descriptions of Space Marines shooting and punching things, and sometimes they use their spaceships to blow stuff up. The massive repetition in the series means that it progresses slowly. Taken on their own, most of the books are fine. I actually quite like Book 19 in the series. In Book 19, the Ultramarines, aka Legion 13, are betrayed at Calth by the Word-Bearers, Legion number 17. In this book, Primarch Guillemot and his Legion are completely surprised that the Word-Bearers could betray them, and they are shocked that Horus could betray them, and they meet a demon for the very first time. Book 19. More books than legions, and yet some major characters are still completely surprised by the main plot of the series. In Book 21, Horus tricks Sanguinius into going to a far corner of the galaxy to fight aliens. When they get there, Sanguinius and his Blood Angels are ambushed by demons. They wrestle with the realization that demons are real and that Horus has betrayed them. Just for context, it's really clear that Horus is a traitor in Book 3. It's really, really clear in Book 5. It's not until Book 19 that the Ultramarines figure it out. It's not until Book 21 that the Blood Angels figure it out. These are two of the most iconic legions for Games Workshop, and it takes them 20 books to start the main plot of the series. So I'm making this review as I'm finishing up Book 21. I originally started reading this series because I wanted to learn more about some of the legions as context for my painting hobby. We still haven't gotten to see much of the Salamanders or the White Scars, and those are two that I'd like to know more about. Let's see what Book 22 is about. A series of short stories featuring Conrad Cruz? Nope. I'm out. Maybe I'll pick and choose a few more books from the series to read, but I am done with just plugging along through all of them. It took me 21 books, but I finally accepted that this series is not worth my time. If it was condensed down to 10 books, it could have been really compelling. Actually, I bet it's possible to make a reading list of 10 decent books from the 50-book series that tells a complete story, and I'd be curious to see if anyone has actually done that. I'd probably be more forgiving if the publisher had clearly labeled the books as either being part of the main storyline or obvious side quest and alternative viewpoint books. As it is, they're numbered from 1 to 50 whatever, implying that they should all be read and that there is a particular order to read them in. Like I said, I thought a lot of the books individually were pretty good. I wouldn't have made it to 21 otherwise. Book 19, where Guillemot finally learns what most of his brothers knew in Book 5, was a fine book. My frustration was that the stories had been told so many times already. A lot of these books could have been published in a different order. Maybe the Ultramarines just drew the short end of the stick by having their story published relatively late compared to some of the other legions. It seems clear that Black Library milked this series for everything it was worth, and then some. The result is that the series is slow, tedious, and repetitive. The books on their own are fine, but as a series it's dreadful. I liked the first 5 books, but then nothing after that did anything to advance the main storyline. From Wikipedia, my understanding is that the Galactic Civil War took 9 Terran years. After 21 books, we're still at year 0. I know that some of the books have taken place slightly later, but by constantly returning to year 0, there's a terrible feeling of stagnation. None of the reveals are surprising or particularly interesting because it's a prequel, and because we get the same story arcs over and over and over. One more point on the corporateness of this series. Do you remember back in school when your teacher made you write an essay? The first question you asked was, how long does it need to be? A good teacher would tell you, as long as it needs to be to communicate what you want to say. And you'd say, yeah, but how long is that? And then the teacher would immediately drop the mask and say, you need to write a 5-page essay. And then all of the students would find a way to make those come out to exactly 5 pages. Sometimes you add some filler, sometimes you just kind of stop writing, and sometimes you mess with the margins. The page count always came out the way it was supposed to. Let's look up the length of Harry Potter books. Order of the Phoenix is 3 times longer than the Philosopher's Stone. I guess those stories are as long as they need to be. Let's look up the length of A Song of Ice and Fire books. A Storm of Swords is 40% longer than either A Feast for Crows or A Game of Thrones. Now let's look up the length of Horus Heresy books. Horus Heresy books are 416 pages with a shockingly small variance. Are these authors telling the stories that are burning inside of them, or are they submitting a writing assignment? I have no inside knowledge. Draw your own conclusions. But Brent, you say, how can you review the series without slogging through all 50 books? Haven't you heard? They get really good around book 35. You should stick with it. Nope. Nope. Fool me 21 times? Shame on you. Fool me 52 times? Shame on me. If you like the Horus Heresy books, cool. I'm open to suggestions for good books in the series that advance the plot. Preferably something where all of the characters are aware that Horus is a traitor and demons exist. Now if you just got a Horus Heresy book as a gift, cool. There are definitely some good books in this series. If you just got 50 Horus Heresy books as a gift, well, I truly do hope you enjoy them. Most importantly, if you started reading this series and you're not sure if they get better, well, as far as I know, no, they don't get better. They stay at a similar quality, but repeat themselves over and over. If you're ever partway through a series of books and you're not having fun, it's okay to stop. There is so much good stuff out there. Normally when I start a series, I do finish it just to see where it ends up. But every once in a while, I bail out and find something else to read. There's nothing wrong with that. Finding good reads can be hard, and there's definitely a convenience factor in just loading up book 22. I haven't read book 22, but by now I'm pretty sure that there are better uses of my time and better books waiting to be read. There are so many great sci-fi and fantasy books out there, completely independent from well-known IPs. I know that picking up a series from an author and a setting that you've never heard of can be a bit daunting compared to picking up the next Star Wars book or the next Warhammer book, but there's something to be said for an author who's building the world that they want to build and has complete control over the fates of every character that they create, and they don't have a hard target for page numbers. Are you interested in galactic civil war that arises when a god emperor steps back and creates a power vacuum? Dread Empire's Fall by Walter John Williams. Do you like powerful fathers struggling against powerful sons while brothers feud against one another? The Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. Do you want awesome sci-fi from a growing IP? The Expanse by James S.A. Corey. If you're not ready for all that, there are better series of Warhammer books, where the characters are mostly the creations of the author and you don't know the ending beforehand. The Eisenhorn trilogy by Dan Abnett is a fine choice. I read a fair number of fantasy and sci-fi books, and if there's interest, I might continue on doing some more reviews. I'm doing this one now because I finally made a decision for myself about this Horus Heresy business. Alright, that's it for this time. Thanks so much for watching.